Hey everybody, this is Adam Forgione from Select Music, and I'm here with Benoît. Did I pronounce it right?
Yes, you're doing well.
All right.
Benoît.
From Aeroquartet. I probably said that wrong. How do you pronounce it?
I say AreoQuartet.
Okay.
But everybody is free to say it the way you want.
And essentially what his company does is when your files are corrupt or your cards or data gets corrupt or you lose it or you just can't access your data anymore, which is horrifying for any filmmaker, any videographer, any photographer. You have done something, you have mastered a way to recover this data. And I don't know what the probability is, how often you're able to do it, but I know that I personally have used your company years ago, and when no other company in the world could save me, I tried your service and I saw all my files and you saved me. You totally saved me. And now over the years, I've heard this story countless times about your company. And when all else fails, when there's nothing else out there, you guys save it every time, at least from the stories that I've heard and my own experience. So I'm so psyched to have you on here right now and talk about your service.
Thank you, Adam.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So do you specialize mainly in media or do you specialize in all types of data recovery?
Well, the first thing to mention is that we only do video and audio. We don't do other kind of recoveries.
All right, so that's good to know. So you don't, if it's like a JPEG or something, that's not something you specialize in.
No, we decline to do it because there are other people that can do it as well. We are not really interested in doing it, and really our focus is on video because video has specific characteristics. You have mentioned that other companies, data recovery companies, don't usually manage to recover the videos correctly. And that's correct, that's right. And the reason why we can do it when others don't is because we have this specialty technology. Okay, so video is specific in that we have very big files that are internally organized in a way that you have to get all the data from beginning to end in order to be able to open the file. If you don't have everything correct, the file will not open and will not be able to be used in the workflow.
Okay, great. So just so I know, because I kind of jumped the gun and thought about photographers too, but essentially your main focus and your target audience are, businesses that utilize video, and that's what you specialize in, recovering video, which is great to know. And of course, that was my experience with you. Let's just say somebody stumbles across this video right now, and they don't care about anything. They don't care about how it works. They just know they have a card, it doesn't work, and they have to explain to their client that it's lost. And this video may help them right now. How would you explain to give that person a little bit of peace of mind? Listen, you may be okay. Here's what I can do for you. How does this work?
Usually our customers will start using our free diagnostic software, which is called Treasured. So this is something that can be done free of charge with no commitment.
I can go download it from the website right now if I have a bad card.
Yes, you can download from the website and start using it.
Okay.
This software will show you what your file contains, even if those files cannot be opened. If they contain video, you will see at least some thumbnails that will tell you what the files contains. If you have a card with lost footage, this software will be able to scan it and will build what we call a disk map. You can call it a contact sheet if it speaks more to you, which is like a representation through thumbnails of all the content of the card. So this is where you will see thumbnails from the event that you have lost, but maybe also thumbnails from older events that have been deleted previously. The diagnostic software will send us a small sample of the damage file, usually 100 megabytes. It takes a few minutes to upload to the servers. This is all we have. We don't have access to the rest of your data. We don't require the customer to upload tens of gigabytes of data. And then we work out everything out of the small sample. We ask him how many files, how many gigabytes he has to repair, and we make the calculation. The first step is diagnostics, and this will restore hope. You will see that...
That's my shot! I want it! Yes. I've been there. I've used you guys, and you've saved my butt. I mean, I remember that software from years ago. No one else found it. No one on Earth found it except you guys. So now, okay, I see the thumbnail. I'm like, that's my shot. I want that shot. What do you do next? What happens?
So after that, you contact us through the software or through email or by whatever mean you prefer. We are a service, so there is people that will be answering you personally. Every customer will have a personalized answer to his case. We answer you with a short preview, usually 5 to 10 seconds, that will show you the video with audio. So this is something that it's moving picture. It will show you that we have the capability to repair it.
And that basically just to verify, yes, that's what I want. I want that back.
Yes, sometimes the customer says, yes, but that's not what I'm trying to repair. Sometimes it happens, and we need to help him look for the missing footage he needs.
Okay, so it's almost like a verification process.
Yes, it's a verification. We give proof that we can do it. We give a quote of how much it will cost. And then the customer decides. In most cases, when the customer answers that he's okay with the service fee that we are charging, and he's okay with the quality that we can deliver, it takes 24 to 48 hours before the customer can have the repaired footage back to his workflow, ready to use.
Amazing.
So what happens during those 24 hours? Basically, we prepare what we call a repair kit. A repair kit is a piece of software that is customized specifically for your type of video that we try on the sample that we got from you. And this piece of software, you can download it, try it on your Macintosh or on your Windows machine, see the results with a watermark, and then with the results in front of you, you can take the decision whether you want to pay or not.
When you send back the custom software that's going to repair the card, does that actually take place on their computer?
Yes, on the customer's computer.
So they're not really uploading tons of data. They're just uploading little samples of data. You're testing it out and saying, you need this software to fix it. And then if you want to pay for it, we'll take the watermark off. And they're like, great, I'll do it. Yeah. And that's kind of how it works, right?
Yes. The typical case, we only receive 100 megabytes of data, which is very small. So data recovery companies, what they do basically is to scan the disk and try to pull the data. And if they are lucky, sometimes they get to pull an entire file that is in the original state and that can be used. But most of the time, they don't get it because the disk is fragmented or because the beginning or the end of the file is missing or is misplaced. So the file ends up being recovered but corrupt. Most of the time when people go to data recovery companies, they pay a lot of money, and what they get is a hard drive with files that don't work because the files have been so-called recovered by the company, but they are not files that can be used in editing software. So the difference between them and us is that we specialize in video, and for every customer, we try to have the most specific tool that we can develop for them, so that the outcome of the repair is something that is usable in the editing software. We always guarantee the result. We don't never charge a customer for something that doesn't work.
If you were to give me like 3 or 4 examples of the most common problems or scenarios you deal with on a weekly basis, what would they be?
Well, at the moment, the stars of the show, I would say, are the 5D Mark IV, the GH5 from Panasonic, the C300, Sony FS series, the A7, and drone videos. They crash on the ground very easily.
Oh, so when you crash the drone and mess up the card, a lot of times you're able to recover that.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I remember that you guys were very reasonable, because I have sent out hard drives that have failed years ago to companies and have gotten quotes back, and they were like, the pricing was ridiculous, like they were holding it ransom. And my experience with you guys was that you guys were really reasonable, you know, to recover the information I needed. And it was like, I will never forget this again. This is unbelievable. So, you know, how does the pricing work? Is it, I know it's custom, right?
Before starting the interview, I've checked, and since 2013, the last time you used our service, we haven't changed the price. Okay, you paid $99.
In a heartbeat. $100 to get my life back? Are you kidding me?
$99, what you paid 5 years ago, is on the low side of what we charge. It's for a single file. The median cost of a repair, imagine a few files or a card, can be 300, 500, okay? That's what I would prefer you to communicate, because 99, it's a case where you have a single file, less than 10 minutes, I think. So it's on the low side of what we charge.
When we as filmmakers lose data, you know, we're at the mercy of potentially getting sued. I mean, you know, if the things are not in the right place, I mean, some people could potentially even lose their businesses over this. This is really scary stuff. And to know that in my situation, I don't remember who it was. I don't remember who the client was, but, you know, for me to spend $100 so I don't have to call up a client and say, oh, I have bad news. Like, everyone on earth would do that, you know? So I just want everyone who's watching this video to understand, like, I know this is a specific situation for me, and every situation is different, but this is a real life situation, and hands down, unbelievable. So are you charging based on the amount of data you're recovering? Is that how it works?
Yes. So there are several criterions that we use. One of them is the number of files and the total duration of the footage that you will recover. So if you are under 10 minutes with a single file, it's the cheapest rate. If you are over 40 minutes with 3 or more files, it's the more expensive one. But then there are other things to take into account. Cinema grade cameras like the Sony FS5, Canon C300 Mark II, and things like that. So that's high-end cameras. You can find even more expensive ones, but that's what you use for high-quality productions. No, you have a middle range of cameras, which are the DSLR cameras like the GH5, the Canon 7D, and things like that. And then you have low-end cameras like GoPros. You can have mobile phones and a lot of things like a Skype recording. Okay, this will go to a lower category.
I throw a few examples at you, and you tell me like what you think the range might be.
Yes.
Okay. Let's just say it was a Canon C100, and it was 10 minutes. Let's say it was several files, maybe 15 minutes, several files of corrupt data.
Yeah. 199.
About $200.
Yes.
Okay. Let's just say I had a 5D Mark IV, Canon 5D Mark IV. Let's just say, really bad, like maybe 20 minutes of footage was just lost. I don't know how many clips, but, a bunch of clips. It was about 20 minutes, a lot of data.
If it's everything recorded with the same settings, it could be 299.
Okay.
If we have used several different settings, different resolution, frame rates, in those cameras it's very easy to change the settings. There are a lot of possible combinations. So if we use several different settings across the files,
yep,
it can be more expensive, 499. So it can be 299. It's consistently the same settings. It could be 499 if we have to develop several tools.
Okay, and now let's just say the same camera, but let's just say it was like one file that was like 3 minutes long, just a single file.
Can be 99 to 139.
Okay, in the ballpark, it gives me an idea. So would you say like most of the service fees range between $100 to say $500? That's a popular range, would you say?
Yes.
Okay. And then obviously anything can go anywhere depending on how much, but at least it gives us a good idea, a good range as to what people know they're getting into. But again, you validate. This is not to say it's going to cost this much. Everything's on a per basis situation. You'd have to evaluate what's happening, and then you can give an accurate quote. We're just talking ballparks here. Still, amazing, because there are data recovery companies that would absolutely hold you for ransom for thousands and thousands of dollars, where I think you guys could do the same thing for a fraction of that cost, very reasonable. And I think that's going to make people want to use you over again when it happens and tell other friends when it does happen. And I've seen it firsthand because I belong to a lot of social media forums and networks, and I've seen your name or the software name get thrown around when all else fails. And you can hear the desperation in the posts. And it's amazing. I've only heard amazing things like no one was able to recover it, but you guys were. And it's a great thing to know. We have that peace of mind out there.
Well, I would say that as a company, we don't do miracles. We cannot recover data where there is no longer data. But in most of the time, the results they get from other companies like data recovery, which are not specialized in video recovery, can be false negatives. Those companies will tell you that nothing can be done, that it's lost forever. But I would say in more than half of the cases, we can turn this around. Where nobody could produce usable video, we will be able to do so.
What are the most common situations that you seem to run into all the time? The popular problems that happen where a filmmaker, this is what happens, and we're able to do this?
So there are basically two common cases. Okay, the first one is what I call recording that's not gracefully terminated. How does it happen? Well, for example, you have a Panasonic GH5 camera, the new model, and you see that you will be running out of battery, and you want to hot swap the battery between the internal and the grip battery, and when you do that, there is a fraction of a second without power for the camera, so the recording stops, and it doesn't stop gracefully. You end up with a corrupt file. So that's the first case.
Now, are you able to recover a file like that?
Yes. A file like that, in 99% of the cases, will be recovered with original quality.
And if before they use you, they're like, I can't get that file. They're like stressing out, correct?
Yes. Sometimes we have customers that are very angry about what happened,
Yes.
and they believe that they can have lost their reputation as a filmmaker or as a videographer. The second common case is what we can call a storage problem. So the storage problem means that recording happened correctly, and then a few days, a few weeks, or a few years later, when you try to use the file, you see that the file is not what you were expecting to have copied of the camera, or is not in a state that you were expecting, or sometimes the hard drive or the SD card is no longer showing the content. So it's what I call a storage failure. The difference is that the failure happens after recording, not during recording.
And again, you can recover that where they would see a file that's corrupt and they don't know what to do, correct?
Storage failure is a bit more difficult.
Okay.
Because many things can have happened. Sometimes people record an event. They transfer the files in the evening to their computers, to their studio, and the day after they return to shooting, and they shoot a different event over the same card. So they are overwriting what they had recorded the day before, and then a few days later they figure out that the first event was not correctly copied to the computer, and they ask me, can we recover that?
So you don't know until you take a look.
I say maybe, because if what they have recorded the day after has overwritten the entire event of the first day, probably I won't be able to pull anything out.
Now the thing is, I've heard these stories, and I've actually had personal stories myself where you do record something and then you come back and you realize I got to recover this, and you're able to recover stuff from, like, sometimes you see files from like a year ago and you're like, how did this not get recorded over? You know? That's
correct. Yes. I will try to explain it with an example. Imagine it's a 500 square feet garden. No? So whether the disk contains no file or is full of files, it's still a 500 square feet garden.
Okay.
In one case, there's only earth, ground, and in the other case we have grass and flowers. No. But when you delete a file from the disk, you're not returning to the earth ground state. You still have grass and flowers. The only thing is that you have marked the area as available.
So basically you're telling it, look, I'm not going to literally delete you. I'm just going to tell you you can't see anything right now.
You can't see anything right now. It's still there, but it's available. Available means the next time you need to write something, you can use this space. So instead of the flowers and the grass, you will plant a tree on top of it. So the flowers and the grass will disappear, but only in the moment where you plant the tree, not before. So this is why when you scan a card or a disk, you can see footage from weeks, months, or even years before. If it has never been overwritten, the space has been available all the time, but has never been reused.
Okay. So you tell me if I understood this correctly. If this is like a garden and the flowers that are growing are the data or the footage that you shot, and then if I format that card, basically what it's saying is the flowers are still here, but I'm not going to let you see them. If I really wanted to get them, I would just give you the card and you'd figure out a way to see the flowers and grab them again. But if I take that card and I go film something tomorrow, it's going to plant over a little bit of that garden, depending on how much you use. And then if I give you that card, you might say, well, the old garden is still there, but this part of the garden is new and I can't get this information.
That's correct, yes.
Well, let me ask you another question. Okay, I have an SD card or I have a CF card. What other types of media can you work with? Can you work with CFast cards? Can you work with physical hard drives? Can you work with USB drives? I mean, what can you work with?
We have been working for almost anything. The important thing to understand is that we work only with data. We are not a company with a clean room that is able to open a hard disk drive and extract the platters and things like that. We are not doing this. It's not our business.
So it doesn't matter what it's on, as long as the data is connected to the computer.
Yes. If it's possible to read the card, even if the card looks empty, if it's possible to see it on your computer, on Windows or on Macintosh, you end up seeing a small icon on the desktop, which means the card is visible. If we get to that point, we can proceed. If the card is not readable or the hard disk is not readable, it means the computer doesn't see it. Then it's difficult for us because we don't have a laboratory to open and fix hardware.
So is it impossible though? If I put the card in my computer and it doesn't show up, do I still have some hope, or is it all lost?
Yes, you still have some hope. If you go to a laboratory that can create a clone of the content of the disk or of the hard disk, because they have the clean room and they have the equipment to do so, to operate on hardware, and you give us the data that they have pulled out of the device, then we can try to fix the videos.
So if I have a card that's physically damaged, it's crushed, or maybe the pins are physically crushed and it doesn't work, I can't necessarily do anything with you guys until I find another company that can extract the data from the physical damaged card. And if that data is still unreadable when it's put on, let's say, a USB drive from them, I can put it in my computer. It shows up whether I see anything or nothing. I can connect to your software and maybe you guys can extract that data from that device. Okay, that's great to know. I'm trying to figure out all the different paths that can help filmmakers when they have the corrupt data. And then let me ask you one other question. Can you work with audio files by themselves, or can you only work with audio files that are connected to video files? Like, can you work with a WAV file?
We can repair audio files.
Back in the day, I remember the H4n from Zoom had a problem where sometimes it wouldn't finish, I guess, wrapping the file or something, right?
We receive such files every week or so.
That's it. You do that all the time, right?
Yeah, but make no mistake about it. Audio is very difficult to repair. It's more difficult to repair pure audio than audio and video.
Interesting. But you can do it.
Yes.
It's a very vulnerable situation. The data recovery company, they have us for ransom. And some people would be, at this point, reasonable rates are not as important as the desperation to get that footage back, and the fear of what we're going to have to tell our clients. So people are making unreasonable decisions because they have no choice. And I feel like you guys are being very ethical and very moral about the situation. I don't have any data that I need recovered today, so I can talk about this without being stressed out. And when I'm thinking about this, I think I'm always going to remember that. I think the community will always remember that you guys are not trying to hurt people, but you have to get paid for your services and you have value to provide.
What we want with our customers is to have a long-term relationship, like 10 years, 15 years. If we can help them not just one time, but 2, 3, 4, 5 times as they need, they don't feel that we are cheating. They don't feel that we are ripping them out. That's what we are for. Okay. On the other side, regarding the data recovery industry, it's very sad, but the situation that we encounter very often is that people are coming to us desperate because they have spent 2 or 3 weeks and they have spent $2,000 or $3,000 on data recovery services that gave them absolutely nothing. And in the last days before the deadline, they come to us. They have spent already their budget. They have no time, and they are asking us the impossible. And that's really sad, because if they were coming to us first, instead of going to those data recovery factories, houses, they would get no stress, solution in a few days for a fraction of what they paid.
This is probably a bad question to ask you, but what can filmmakers do to, potentially avoid problems before they have to call you? Or maybe there's things they can do that prepare them to use your services in case things do go wrong. I don't know. I'm just throwing them out there.
I can explain you a few things. Now, first of all, try to avoid using brand new equipment. So the last camera from Canon, from Panasonic, in the first few months, they probably have unstable firmware and lots of problems that will end up generating corrupt footage. So my first advice would be try to use always material, equipment that has been around for a few months or a few years. That's not always possible. The second thing, many times the mistake can be avoided. People, they record to a disk or a card that doesn't have enough throughput in terms of writing speed to write the amount of data coming from the camera. That's a very common mistake, and unfortunately in those cases we cannot do anything because some data has been left in the process.
So you're saying make sure you're using a fast enough card for your camera.
Yes, and when you record to a hard drive, hard disk or SSD, your enemy is fragmentation. So if you write to a disk that is almost full of data, you will have a lot of fragmentation, which means that the disk has to hop from one region to another to find available space. And in doing that, it wastes a lot of time and it reduces considerably the writing speed of the disk, and it can reach the point where the disk is not capable of writing the data coming from the camera. Even if on the specification of the disk, it's capable of doing it, but it's only capable of doing it when the disk is empty or has continuous regions of available space.
Now, are you talking about cameras that record directly to hard drives as opposed to recording directly to cards?
Yes.
Okay.
So my advice would be when you write to a card or a disk, make sure that we are not in a fragmentation situation, which often happens when the disk is almost full. So try to write on cards with a lot of available space.
Now, what if, this brings up another question then. Should we not use cards to the very max? Should we only use cards, let's say 80% and then switch them?
I'm not exactly saying that. Fragmentation happens when you have filled the card in the past and you have deleted part of the content. So imagine that you have been doing 4 days of recording, of shooting, and you delete the first 2 days.
When you say, you mean delete or format? Is there a difference?
Delete. So that's an interesting point. Formatting the card will remove fragmentation. So it's a good practice.
So if I were to take a card and dump the data and use the card again, your recommendation is always try to format before you just try to delete. Just always try to, best practice, try to format, correct?
Format is a best practice, but I want to point out a few things. The first thing is that you should never format the card before verifying that what you have copied to your computer is usable. It happens a lot of times. People, they rely on the computer and on the camera. They say, oh, I've moved everything to the computer, so now I can format the card, but they haven't verified anything. Failures can happen, and it's a very easy step, no, for photographers or videographers to do, is just to verify a few files among those that you have copied, to verify that you really have the material on your PC. That's the first thing. The second thing is that there are two ways, there are two different methods to format a card. One is what I call a swallow formatting, which means the garden remains the same as before, but now you don't see anything. No? So the content is still here, but is hidden now. And the second way of formatting a card implies overwriting part of the card, or even the entire space of the card. If you format the card on your computer, they will prompt you to do a swallow formatting, which takes a few seconds. You also have the option of doing formatting with overwriting, but in this case it will take a few minutes or a few hours. So there's a big difference. In the first case, we have the capability of recovering videos even after formatting. In the second case, we don't have, because there has been overwriting of data. But what is dangerous is that when you format the card inside the camera, usually they do the second kind of formatting, which makes recovery difficult or impossible.
Wait, if I remember, when you format inside the camera, it usually does more of the low-level style?
Yes, it depends on the model of camera. I cannot say this as a general statement.
On some of the cameras I remember, I'd have to have it in front of me again by memory, but I do remember I usually do the one that's not low-level. I do the fast one a lot, which sounds like I'm just hiding the garden. I'm not erasing the garden.
Yeah.
So let me ask you another question really quick, not to kind of tangent off, it's very interesting, is do you have a suggestion as to how filmmakers should verify their cards? Or would you just say, whether you're doing it physically by previewing the files yourself, or is there a software or a method or a drive system? Because I know there's different ways to verify every bit of data versus you can just literally play the clips and see if they work. And what would you suggest?
I think that any verification is better than no verification. I would suggest to do this. You verify the first recorded video, the last one, and one in the middle. And with that, we have 99% of chances of detecting any problem.
And then if they have any sort of technology that can go in and analyze the data and verify it, that's a bonus. That's great. But if somebody doesn't have that kind of equipment, this method, first, last, and middle, will at least get you a lot more peace of mind.
Yes. Yeah,
great.
definitely.
Great to know that. You hear that, everybody?
Sorry?
No, I'm talking to the viewers now. Do you hear that? You're supposed to verify the data. Okay. We do it all the time, but I'm sure there are people that don't. Because I have had, just to be very specific, I've had a Lexar card, and I don't know if it was the card because it was Lexar or if it had to do with the type of card reader. I don't know, but the card data was taken off, put on a hard drive, perfectly fine, no problems. And when we brought the file into Premiere Pro, it was all pixelated. And then we go back to the original file, and it verified that it was exactly the right size, but it was pixelated. Luckily, we had the original card. We hadn't formatted it yet. And I put that card in a different reader on a different computer, and I got the data off, and it was perfect. So I don't know what happened and why it happened, but when it copied the data, it didn't warn me something was wrong. It just, and that file was absolutely corrupt. At least I couldn't do anything with it. I'm sure I could have sent it to you, but the bottom line is that it was corrupt until I took the card. Had I erased that card, I might have messed up and I might have lost that data.
Was it a Canon EOS camera?
Yes, it was. Yes.
So there's a failure mode in those cameras. Let's say the file looks good. It has the right size. It can be opened. But if you play it, you will see a pixelation every few frames or every few seconds.
Exactly.
That failure mode is because there is a bit flipping happening in the recording or in the transfer. So we've seen that with Canon cameras, not with other brands of cameras. So I think it's something specific to Canon cameras. It's what we call flipping a bit. No, I can explain you a few more things about cards.
Yeah.
Do you know that there is a market of counterfeit cards?
I would imagine so. And when you say counterfeit, do you mean it says SanDisk, but it's not a SanDisk?
Yes, but not only that. It says that it's 128 gigabytes, and in fact it's only 8 gigabytes.
How do we avoid that?
Well, you avoid that by avoiding purchasing on eBay or on. So if you buy your cards on a reputable vendor, someone that.
Yeah.
So for example, I don't know what reputable means, no, but eBay is not reputable.
So in other words, even if I go to Amazon, I should probably try to buy it from SanDisk directly, rather than another third-party company I've never heard of before.
Yes, you should, because even if it's a SanDisk labeled card, it doesn't guarantee that it's not counterfeit. If you're not sure about the vendor. Imagine you buy a 128 gigabyte SanDisk card, and it turns out that the real capacity of the card is only 8, which happens in the. We have seen this a lot. You will never figure out before you fill the 8 gigabytes, and from this moment on, everything you record will be lost.
Wait, are you saying that the camera is still telling you it's recording, but it's not?
Yes.
So it's not like it runs out of 8 gigs and says card's full. It actually keeps pretending like it's running, and it's not.
The card pretends to be 128 gigabytes, but in fact, it only can store 8.
Wow. And you've encountered this with customers?
Yes. Unfortunately, we cannot do anything about that.
It doesn't exist.
The data has never been written in the first place. There is a software that lets you check if a card has the legit capacity. Another way to verify it is to write a few files big enough to fill the entire card and verify that you can read them back.
Wow, that's scary. I had no idea, but that's great to know. Wow. How did you get into this business?
Well, it's a long story, but I'll try to make it short. About 10 years ago, in 2007, I had a hobby business, and I was selling some very simple video software on the Macintosh platform, and to try to figure out what the customers wanted me to do in the future in the software. And one day, I stumbled upon a guy, a school teacher in the US, and the guy had installed in the classroom a small computer, a Mac Mini, with a webcam to record during the day and the night, like a kind of surveillance camera to record what was happening in the classroom.
Yeah.
And the thing is that one night, someone entered in the classroom and stole the computer. But the thing that the computer was recording to an external drive, which was in a different enclosure, and the drive was left in the classroom. So the school teacher had the file where presumably the guy who stole the computer had been recorded, but the file could not be read or opened, and he could not figure out who had stolen the equipment. So for me it was a very interesting problem to solve.
Yeah.
I had no idea how to solve it, but I contacted the guy and said him, okay, send me the file and I'll try to figure out. And this is how my business started.
Wow. So you were just curious, and by doing that, you figured out how to recover that file, and then you were like, this is something.
Yes. So
You figured.
I was really happy when I saw the first pictures out of the corrupt file. I thought, wow. And then I thought, but maybe this could be interesting for other people, and maybe this could be something I could charge a fee for. So after a few weeks, I tried to contact more people with the same problem, and I started having a few cases, maybe 2 or 3 cases a month. It was pure craft. I had no tool, no knowledge about it. Everything was new and had to be researched and discovered. Well, the first 3 months were very difficult.
Yeah, but you were learning, you know.
Yes, I was learning. So in the first months, I did it for free, just to see what I could do. And then after a few months, I saw that there was a good chance that I could recover the files. This was something that people was eager to pay me for. So I said, well, why not charge a fee for that?
Yeah.
And that's how the business started. It took a couple of years to take off, to develop all the technology, to create the diagnostic program Treasured. But then we reached a point where I saw that as a viable business, and I left my job. I had another job at the time, and ever since I have dedicated all my time to this. Wow.
Well, I think we, as a community of filmmakers, are extremely grateful that happened, and that you do what you do, because you saved my butt, and I know you've saved definitely some of my friends with corrupt files, and I hope that a lot of people get to learn about you, and you can save them as well. It's amazing what you do. It really is.
Thank you. Thanks for the appreciation.
Absolutely. All right. Well, anyway, I think you gave and shared a ton of information, and I hope that everyone watching has grabbed gold nuggets from this. And obviously, if you're running into this situation right now, contact this company, because they are amazing. I've used them. A lot of my friends in the industry have used them, and you know, the probability of you saving your data with these guys is much higher than any other company I know in the industry. So I wish you well, and thank you so much for sharing your time.
Thank you, Adam.